Hello everyone, welcome to this tutorial by ZebraCode. In this tutorial, we are going to look at C++ for unit testing. This is an introduction to unit testing in C++. And this video is going to be a part of a series in unit testing with C++. What is unit testing in C++? Well, unit testing is a process that allows you to test an individual unit or a piece of your code to see that it is doing what it is expected to do. In software development, unit testing helps you to detect if a piece of code, such as a function, class, etc., is behaving as it is expected to. If a piece of code is tested and it behaves as it is expected to, you can say your code or unit test passes. If it does not behave as it is expected to, you can say your code or unit test fails. C++ unit testing frameworks. In this introduction tutorial for unit testing in C++, we will be using the assert.h header file. There is also a header file called assert.h for C programming. But in this tutorial, we are going to focus on the one for C++, and we will be using the assert.h header file. To add it to our program, we use the include method of adding a header file to our usual C++ program. Once again, we will be using the assert.h header file for this tutorial. There are several frameworks out there that you can use for C++ unit testing. For example, we have the Google test, the boost.test, doctest, CPP, utest, catch2, CPP test, Qt test, Qt, CPP unit, and many others that you can use. Some of them will use the color code green to indicate a test that passes, while some of them will use the red color to indicate a test that fails. We will not be using any framework at this stage. We will use it later. This tutorial is for C++ unit testing absolute beginner. It is going to be in a series, so at this stage we will not be talking about C++ unit testing frameworks. We will come to that later in other videos. Here are some header files that we can use for the assert in C++ and C programming languages. For the C programming language, we can use the C assert header file, while for the C++ programming language, we can use the assert.h header file. Unit testing with C or C++ with header files. Once again, as we are going to be doing this test for C++ programming language, we are going to use the #include assert.h header file. There are some things that we need to know about this assert.h header file. The assert.h header file defines just one macro function that can be used as a standard debugging tool. And that function is the assert function, the assert macro. We will see that in a minute in this video. And for the assert.h header file, if the expression that we are testing is false, a message is written to the standard error device and abort is called. In other words, the program execution will terminate. In the C or C++ documentation, when the program execution is terminated, it shows it shall at least include the expression whose assertion failed, the name of the source file, and the line number where it happened, that is where the failure occurs. This is the expression format for this line, and it is actually explaining this point here that I have just talked about. You can go to these links to read more about the assert and the assert.h header files. Now, with that said, let's actually write some code to use the assert.h header file to do our unit testing in C++. You can use any C++ IDE for this tutorial. However, I am going to be using the Qt IDE for this tutorial. I am going to open the Qt IDE. Now, with my Qt Creator IDE open, I am going to create a new project. It is going to be a normal C++ file. Great. Now, I have my project created and my file is named main.cpp. We can delete everything here if we want. Actually, we don't need this one here now. Using namespace standard, delete it. Include IO stream, we don't need it for this application, delete it. Int main, hello world, delete this one. So it should look like this. But here, I'm going to leave a comment. Application for C++ unit testing. Application for C++ unit testing. Now I will add a comment. Add the assert.h header file. So that will be include assert.h. So our assert.h header file now is added. Once again, this is an introduction to C++ unit testing video. So I am going to test it now with some arithmetic operators, which is for add, subtract, divide, multiply, modulos. Here I'm going to add some comment. A unit test application for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and modulus. A unit test application for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and modulus. So that is what our application is going to do. We'll break this one to multiple lines. Now I will add a comment for my first function. A function to add two integer numbers. Now let's declare the function. Int add numbers, int a, int b, return a plus b. The function name is add numbers and it is of data type int. It will take in two parameters and return the two parameters added together. Now let's write a unit test for this function. I will leave a comment here again. Write a function to test the add numbers function. Void test add. Now our assert macro in the assert.h header file will become handy. Assert add numbers 3, 5 equals 8, semicolon. Do another assert. Add numbers 13, 27 equals 40, semicolon again. Another one. Assert add numbers 32, comma 108 equals 140. Let's add one more assertion to it. Assert add numbers 56, comma 56 equals 112, semicolon. Save it. Here so far we have a function that adds two numbers together, int a and int b, and here is another function for us to test this function, and this one is called test add. Now in the main section of our application, let's call this test add function. Save it. Now let's build and test our application to see if our unit testing is working or not. I'm going to build it first. We build our projects. Great, it was built successfully. Now let's run it. Great. Here now it says press return to close this window, which means our unit testing passes. I'm going to close this now. Now our unit test passes because there was no error. Now let's change this one here. 13 plus 27 equals 40. I'm going to change 40 now to 47. Save it. Let's run it again. Great. As expected, it fails. Now it says assertion failed, and this is the file, and this is the line where the error occurs. It says here expression add numbers 13 plus 27 equals 47. That is not true, so that is why it is failing here now. I'm going to close this window. Now I will change it to the correct answer. Undo it. Now I have changed it to the correct answer, which is 40. I'm going to run it again one more time. Great. Again, our test passes, so it is not throwing any error at this stage because the test case passes. So this is our first test case with the assert header file in C++. Now we have done the one for addition. Let's do another one for subtraction. I will leave a comment here. A function to subtract numbers. It is going to be of data type int, subtract numbers, int a, comma, int b. Return a minus b, semicolon. Now let's write a test case for this subtract numbers function. Write a function to test the subtract numbers function. I'm referring to this function here, subtract number. There is a typo here. Subtract numbers, void test subtract, assert 23. For this one, I am using an approach that is a bit different from this one, but they both work, and I will explain it to you in a minute. Assert 23 equals subtract numbers 100, 77. Add another one here. Assert 12 equals subtract numbers 24, 12, semicolon. Let's add one more to it. Assert 15 equals subtract numbers 35, 20, semicolon. Now let's call our test subtract function in our main application. Test subtract. That's great. Before we run it, let me quickly explain something to you here. There is a little bit of difference between this one and this one. What we have here is assert. We call the add numbers first, and we use the equals at the end of it. But here we are using the numbers, then equals subtract numbers. So the layout is a bit different. We have put them in different positions, but it still works. So if you are to use any of them, I would suggest that you stay consistent. Be consistent with whichever one you are using. For the purpose of explanation, that is why I am using both. Now let's save, build, and run our application again. Build. We build our projects. Great. The build was successful. Now let's run it. Great. Once again, all our test cases passed. None of them failed. Let me close this one. Okay. Now, here we say 100 minus 77 equals 23. That's true. Here, 24 minus 12 equals 12. That's true. Here, 35 minus 20 equals 15. That's true. So, all these assertions are true. That is why all the test cases passed. Now let's change one of them to be false. We know that 35 minus 20 is not equals to 10. Let's save it. This time let's build it. We build our projects. Great. It was built successfully. Now let's run it. Exactly as expected, assertion failed. And this is the path to the file, and this is the line of code where the error is. And here it says expression 10 equals subtract numbers 35, 20. This is where the problem is. This is where it is failing. 35 minus 20 is not 10. So I'm going to close this one. Now let's fix that error message. Change it to 15. Save it. If we run it again, once again, our test cases passed. None of them failed. I'm going to go back to the page again. So in this case now, we have written a function for adding numbers, a function for subtracting numbers, and we have also written two test cases for those functions. You can see when a test will pass and when a test will fail. Now, I'm going to write a function for the test one. What was that again on our list? Multiplication. I will leave a comment here. Write a function to multiply 3 integers. int multiply numbers, int x, comma, int y, comma, int z. Return x multiplied by y multiplied by z, semicolon. Save it. Now let's write a test case for this function. I will leave a comment here. Write a function to test the multiply numbers function. And our function to test it will be void test multiply assert multiply numbers 3, 3, 3. That would be 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3 equals what? Equals 27. Let's add another one. Assert multiply numbers 10, 10, 10. That will be 10 multiplied by 10 multiplied by 10. And what will the answer for that be? That will be equals what again? 1000. One more, assert multiply numbers 15, 3, 2 equals, I will put 81 there for now. We are going to test it anyway to see whether it's true or false. One more, assert multiply numbers 5, 5, 5 equals, I will put here 100 for now. We will test it again. So we have 4 asserts here now. So the next thing is for us to call this function in the main area of our application. So that will be test multiply. Save it. And let's build it. We have a problem here. Where is the problem coming from? We have here the definition of int x, int z was not declared in this scope, too many arguments. So there are some problems with our code. Let's fix that. Int multiply numbers, int x, int y, int x. So this should be z. So it should be int x, int y, int z. Will be return s multiplied by y multiplied by z. That's correct now. So that typo should be gone this time around. If we try to build it again, let's build it. Great. Build was successful. Now let's run it. Great. Exactly. It says here now assertion failed. So this is the file and this is the line. It says on line 43 there is an expression multiply numbers 15, 3, 2 equals 81. This expression is false. It's not true. That's why this test case is failing. And before I leave this screen to fix that error, look at one thing here. It is showing us one error at a time. We know that there are 2 errors in that test case. So let's go there and fix them one at a time. If we fix the first one, it will show us the second one. Remember earlier I said that when the test fails, the program terminates. At this point, it is terminating here. It's not even reading the second one. Now let's go and fix that. Actually, this one should be 90. 90. Save it. If we run it now, we will get another error message, which will be for the next one, because this one is also not correct. Let's build it. Yes, build was successful. Now let's run it. Great. Again, as expected, assertion failed. This is the path to the file, and this is the line. The error now is on line 44. And here now it says for the expression, multiply numbers, 5 multiplied by 5 multiplied by 5 equals 100. That is false. It is not true. That is why this test case is failing. So let's close this one and fix that error. This should actually be 125. We're going to save it and build it again before running it. Great. Build was successful. Now let's run it. Exactly. Now all our test cases passed. None of our test case is failing this time around. Going to close this one. So we have written 3 functions and 3 test cases so far. What is the next one? Yeah, the next one is for division. Let's write a function for that as well. I will leave a comment here. A function to divide two integer numbers. Int divide numbers, int a, comma, int b. I will be return a divided by b, semicolon. Save it. Now let's write a test case for this function that we have just created. I will leave a comment here. Write a function to test the divide numbers function. Void test divide. Now let's add some assertions. Assert divide numbers 46, 2 equals 23, semicolon. Again, assert divide numbers 50, 2 equals 25, semicolon. Another one, assert divide numbers 300, 10 equals 30, semicolon. One more, assert divide numbers 20, 4 equals 8. This last one is false. It's not true, so our test case is going to fail here because 20 divided by 4 equals something different, not 8. Let's run it first. But before we run it, we need to call this test divide function in our main application. Test divide. Now let's save it. Let's build it. Great, our code was built successfully. Now let's run it. Once again, as expected, our assertion failed. It points us now to the file and to the line where the assertion is failing, line 55. Here now it says the expression divide numbers function. In that function, 20 divided by 4, we say it is 8. It's not true. That is false, and that is the reason why it is failing. To close this one. Now let's fix that error. Actually, 20 divided by 4 is 5. Let's save it. Let's run it once again. Great. As expected, now everything passes. All our test cases passed. None of them failed. So let's close this one. Now we have written 4 test cases for 4 different functions. I think there is one more there. Let's quickly do that. Yes, that one is for modulus. Let's fix that. Yes, that's the correct spelling for modulus. I'm going to write a comment here. A function for modulus of numbers. So data type int. Modulus of numbers. Int a, comma, int b. That will be return a modular, that's percentage sign, b, semicolon. Here we are saying int a divided by int b, what is remaining? We want to find out what the remainder is. So this is our function. Now let's write a test case for this function. I'll add a comment here. Write a test case for the modulus of numbers function. It will be void test underscore modulus assert modulus of numbers 28,7 equals 0. Let's add another assert modulus of numbers 32,16 equals 0. 32 divided by 16, nothing is remaining. Assert modulus of numbers 19 divided by 3 equals 1. You can divide the number 18 by 3 and nothing will be remaining. But if you divide the number 19 by 3, 1 will be remaining. So the remainder will be 1. That is what modulus is about. One more. Assert modulus of numbers 56, 10 equals 6, semicolon. Now let's call our test modulus function in our main application. Test modulus, save it. Now let's build our application. Build our projects. Great. Build for our project was successful. Now let's run it. Great. All our test cases passed. There is no failing test case in it. Now let's close it. Here what we have said is 28 divided by 7 equals 0. Nothing is remaining. 32 divided by 16 equals 0. Nothing is remaining. 19 divided by 3 equals 1. That's 1 will still be remaining. 56 divided by 10. That will be 50, remaining 6. So this is working well. Now let's change this last one, 6, to say a different number, 5. And now let's run our test cases again. First, let's build it. Great, our project was built successfully. Now let's run it. Exactly. As expected, assertion failed. Says now in this file on line 70, the expression modulus of numbers 56 divided by 10 remainder equals 5. That is not true. That is false. And that is why this test is failing. Let's close this one. And now if we change it back to what it was before, 6, this is true. So our test should pass. Now let's run it. Correct. All our test cases passed. None of them is failing. So I'm going to close this one. Now, in this tutorial, we have successfully written 5 different functions and 5 different test cases in C++ for those functions that we have written. This is an introduction video. I hope it gives you an idea of what it means to write a unit test for a piece of code or for our program. We just use the include assert.h header file here. The only header file we are using here now is the assert.h file. So nothing else. And these test cases are passed. We see how a test case can fail and how it can pass. In this introduction tutorial, we have looked at how to write unit tests in C++ using the assert.h file. This approach works fine for a small project or a limited project. However, as your application grows in size or becomes more complex with more lines of code added to it and more developers are being added to it, your testing requirements can grow too. That can lead to using unit testing frameworks. When you run your unit testing in C++ with a framework, the framework will allow you to report results of tests such as number of tests passed, number of tests failed, runtime, duration, and so on. In our case, today, it only shows us, oh, assertion failed. The application that the assertion is failing in, that is the project, the line number, and the expression. It did not really tell us more about it. But if you are using a framework, you will get detailed information about your test cases, whether they are passing or failing, or why they are passing or why they are failing. Then if you are using a framework for your unit testing, you can run your unit test in continuous integration. You can reuse your test code. You can report test or code coverage to show how much of the code-based unit testing that you have carried out. And you can also create unit tests quickly and easily. So this video is just an introduction to unit testing in C++. It is expected that the video will give you a basic understanding of unit testing as well as the concept of unit testing in C++. I hope you've learned something from it. Watch out for my upcoming videos on this topic of unit testing in C++. Thank you for watching. See you in my next video. Bye for now.